Welcome to another episode, everyone. Let's dive right into the story of the drug kingpin, Rayful Edmonds. Many of you may have heard of him. I certainly have. His story is a fascinating one. He did end up snitching on 300 people or so because his best friend told on him or something. His mother, father, sister, everyone was caught up in this operation. And when he went to trial, they were all involved in the trial case. He was making $2 million a week at one point, according to estimations.
At just 22 years old, Rayful Edmond wasn't chasing power. He already had it. From the heart of Washington, D.C., he built a drug empire so massive it allegedly generated over $2 million a week, while law enforcement struggled to understand how he moved.
And yeah, he had a Washington, D.C., and apparently he had outsmarted the DEA there in Washington, D.C. for some time.
He didn't look like a kingpin, didn't act like one, and that's what made him dangerous. His operation blended into the city so perfectly that by the time the government realized what was happening, he was already miles ahead of them. This is the unbelievable story of Rayful Edmond, born straight into the heart of a struggling, crowded D.C. reality. Rayful Edmond III came into this world on November 26, 1964, and from day one, life wasn't light. Raised by Constance Bootsy Perry and Rayful Edmond II, he grew up as the baby of 6 siblings, spoiled in his own way, feeling like the king of the house, even when the house itself was packed tight with pressure. That M Street Northeast home stayed overflowing. 20 to 30 people on any given day, grandmother in one corner, sisters, half-brothers, half-sisters, cousins, aunts, all under one roof. That wasn't just a house, that was a survival zone. Everybody inside it moving with the same goal: find a way to eat, a way to live, a way to make it through tomorrow. In that environment, asking too many questions wasn't the culture. As long as money showed up and bills got handled, nobody pressed where it came from. His mother worked a government job at the Department of Health and Human Services, but that wasn't enough for a family that big. So on the side, pills and other drugs got moved just to keep the lights on. His father moved the same way, and stories floated through the streets that he was deep in the heroin game across D.C. and Baltimore. Rayful didn't stumble into the life, he was raised inside it. Before he could even really understand the danger, he was watching it happen in his own living room. He learned by observing, quiet and sharp, soaking up how transactions worked, how money moved, how people talked when business got serious. By 9 years old, he was already trusted with real responsibility, holding cash for his mother while she sold pills and running money back and forth for his father like it was normal chores. In that world, the drug trade wasn't seen as grimy. It was seen as the shortcut, the ladder out of being broke, the fast pass to cars, clothes, food, respect. The addicts got looked down on, but the sellers, they were treated like neighborhood royalty. They were the ones buying groceries for families, sponsoring teams, paying for outfits, sliding cash to anybody short on rent. Before ATMs were common, the dealers were the ATMs.
Yeah, of course, growing up in my neighborhood, I looked up to these same sort of individuals, dealers. They had the women, the fast cars, the flashy clothes, the jewelry, and without anything else to look up to, without any other guidance, this is what I turned to as well, as many people do. The promise of fast cash and a certain lifestyle. And you haven't really been taught to work for this and how to work for it, how to use your mind to gain this wealth, then, you go for what you know. But it doesn't end well for anyone. Rayful Edmond, spoiler alert, he passed away a year or so ago. He was 60 years old, I believe they said. Let's continue, man. Let's see what happened. It gets deep, though. He had a lot of stuff going on, obviously, with $2 million a week that he was making. And apparently he had stayed strong for a minute, before someone told on him. And I guess he used that as an excuse to tell on everyone else in this operation. Once again, every video there's somebody telling. Everyone, every single time.
TM. Rayful started small with pills, but the streets pulled him in deeper. Before long, he moved into heavier work, standing right out on the corners in open-air markets. Federal agents later said his own father handed him his first kilo of cocaine. That was the moment he stopped being a helper and became his own boss. He stepped out solo and built his own name. With the money coming in, he didn't just flash it. He poured it right back into his family. Dinners, bills, better living, covering everything. At a point, he wasn't just helping. He was carrying the whole household. The kid turned into the provider. What made it crazier was that he wasn't just a street kid. He was smart for real. Teachers saw it early. He stood out in reading, in math, in logic. People said he was born sharp, like his brain moved faster than everybody else's. At Dunbar High School, he wasn't just known. He was lit, most popular, best dressed. Teachers said he paid attention, understood what success looked like, and moved like he was built for it. On top of that, he could hoop. Basketball came natural to him. Then he shocked people by doing something nobody expected. He enrolled in the University of the District of Columbia. That move alone showed he had options. He had a path that could have taken him far. But after a few months, the streets pulled him back. The money called louder. The speed of it, the power of it, the respect that came with it, he chose that over classrooms. At his core, though, the streets wasn't what drove him most. Family did. He moved with a family-first mindset before that phrase even had weight. No matter how big things got, he stayed tied to protecting and providing for the people he came from. He flipped the traditional roles early. Instead of leaning on his parents, he became the backbone of the house, the one everybody depended on. That loyalty shaped how he ran everything. He wanted his world to feel like a family operation, tight, loyal, together. He really believed everybody close to him would stick together through whatever came. In the end, his childhood gave him a powerful support system, a deep sense of loyalty, a hunger to provide. But that same system, built in pressure and survival, eventually crashed head first into the dangerous reality of the life he chose. By the mid-'80s, the streets of Washington, D.C. weren't just buzzing with crack. They were moving under Rayful Edmond's command. At just 22 years old, he had turned himself into one of the most powerful players the city had ever seen, quietly grabbing control of a massive chunk of the cocaine game and running it like a real empire. This wasn't some small corner hustle. He had an army, around 150 people deep, most of them young, posted up on corners like chess pieces. Some pushed product, some stood lookout, and all of them knew the block like the back of their hands. Escape routes weren't accidental. They were planned. Alleys, abandoned row houses, broken fences, back stairwells, everything mapped out so the second unmarked cars popped out, everybody could vanish. The numbers behind his operation sounded unreal. Some feds said the money flowing through his crew hit hundreds of millions a week. Others put it at hundreds of millions a year. Either way, it was...
Yeah, either way. 100, oh man. Is that even possible? Hundreds of millions a week? They had to have been, no, humongous. Maybe a year, but even that's hundreds of millions. I guess so if he was making $2 million a week, but hundreds of millions a week, no. I'm not even sure if that's feasible. But what do I know? I'm not in the trade. Y'all tell me in the comments. Maybe it is possible. Maybe y'all know something I don't. Maybe y'all know that he was indeed bringing in this sort of money. That would just be astounding.
Money on a scale most people couldn't even imagine. The streets felt like a war zone wrapped in a business district. A Washington Post reporter sent to cover the crack epidemic ended up getting addicted himself, describing that world as non-stop adrenaline. Dealers outside all day and night, violence popping off over corners and blocks that felt dangerous just to stand on. The demand came from everywhere, not just the neighborhoods, but people driving in from the suburbs too. Working people, different races, different backgrounds, jamming their cars into places like Hanover, Florida Avenue, Orleans, and Trinidad at all hours. Most started just having fun with it, then slid down into the cheaper, stronger crack. The streets stayed clogged with headlights and desperation. Rayful saw the shift from powder to crack early and moved fast. He locked in with already established names and built alliances that strengthened his reach. His main stronghold sat around the strip between Morton and Orleans, and the area of 4th and M Street Northeast. That territory was only blocks from the capital, but what made it perfect were all the cut-throughs, built-in escape lanes if police pressure got heavy. The real heart of the operation ran out of his grandmother's house on M Street. That was the factory. Powder got stepped on, cooked, and turned into crack right there under the same roof where family lived. As business exploded, so did his structure. Armed enforcers protected the lanes. Dozens and dozens of sellers stayed on rotation just to keep product flowing. He didn't trust random outsiders. He picked kids from the neighborhood, people who knew every face, every sound, every strange movement, to work as his eyes. His own family got pulled in too, and the more addiction grew, the bigger his customer list got. On peak.
Yeah. And the bigger his customer list got, the more people he employing to do this stuff, to do his bidding out here on these street corners and all that, the more he's exposing himself to the authorities. Yes, you're going to make more money. This is an operation. You're trying to get paid, but the more people that you involve in your business, the more chance you have of going down, because once they are caught up and arrested, they're going to start pointing the finger at you, which is apparently precisely what happened here. Apparently his best friend, supposedly the story goes, I'm not sure if he's going to say this here, snitched on him. I'm assuming he's telling his life story, snitched on him, and then Rayful Edmond, not Edmonds, I was saying Edmonds earlier, I guess it's Rayful Edmond, excuse me, snitched on 300 people. I saw a headline earlier saying that. Again, I don't know if he's going to mention some of that here. I'm assuming so. But either way, supposedly, allegedly, we'll see if that is absolutely true. He snitched on 300 people, this individual here. All of this money coming in, this whole entire operation, him being the leader of the operation and all of this, when it's all said and done, okay, if his best friend snitched on him or what have, okay, well, oh well, you snitching back is not good. You still a snitch.
Nights, the operation moved like a machine. Transactions happening faster than heartbeats, dozens of deals per minute. Each runner pulling in serious weekly money while the organization stacked hundreds of thousands at a time. At the very height of his power, single weeks touched figures that most businesses never see in a lifetime. The supply chain stayed just as serious. Colombian cocaine moving through long-distance routes, often coming from the West Coast, with massive quantities flowing through his hands every single month. He wasn't selfish with the blueprint either. He showed others how to spin off their own operations. Sometimes he paid partners in product instead of cash, giving them the base they needed to launch their own illegal networks. In a twisted way, he embodied a street version of the American dream, coming from nothing and turning it into everything, even if it fed off the same community that raised him. But power like that always came with blood on it. His crew wasn't just about money. They were about control. Murders stacked up. Violent sprees followed. Fear stayed heavy in the air. The streets respected him, but they also feared what came with his name. To him, it wasn't black and white. He saw the drug world as part of life, part of the reality people had to survive in, not something he cleanly separated from, right or wrong. That mindset shaped how he moved. Even his enemies admitted he was sharp. He remembered transactions down to the smallest detail. Every dollar, every bag, every deal. He didn't just sell, he marketed. He built a brand. He talked his power into existence and used that reputation to lock down stable money and crush competition. What made him even more confusing was how he lived. On one side, he moved low-key, plain house, cheap flights, no loud spotlight lifestyle. On the other side, he dropped outrageous money in ways that made people's heads turn. His name carried weight everywhere. By the time mainstream media started paying attention, the streets already knew the truth. In Northeast Washington, he wasn't just a dealer. He was the king of the block, respected, copied, admired, and feared all at the same time. In just 1 month back in 1988, he flew out to Los Angeles twice and casually stacked up over $5,000 in hotel bills, paying all of it in straight cash like it was nothing. His lifestyle matched the paper. A custom diamond-covered Rolex sat heavy on his wrist, a piece so icy it would later be valued at over $40,000. His driveway looked like a luxury car commercial. Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Jaguar all lined up clean. Inside his house, it wasn't safes or bank accounts holding the money. It was trash bags, black garbage bags stuffed with small bills, tossed around the house like clothes on a messy bedroom floor. He moved wild with it too. He'd lean out of car windows and throw money into the street just because he could. He stayed blessing women with thick gold hoop earrings, passing them out like candy.
Yeah, it's a lot of individuals I know personally that have done that sort of stuff, these kingpins, throwing money out the window or getting out of their car and just blessing all sorts of people right there in the neighborhood with money. They're flashy. I mean, they're looking out, but people look up to them. As I said, growing up, they have a lot of influence in the community. Not many other heroes at that time to really look up to. And, if you don't know any better, then this is the trap that you will end up falling into. But this is a typical kingpin, giving out cash, being generous with the cash, blessing the ladies with money and with gifts. This is all really a part of the power, really are all a part of the power grab, and it's important to any empire that you look out for the people around you, because if not, it's only a matter of time before they turn on you.
The feds finally ran down one of his spots. They found $12,000 in small bills laying around the floor like somebody just dumped out a duffel bag and never bothered to pick it back up. Even with all that money, he never left his block. He stayed right where he came from. That neighborhood wasn't just home, it was headquarters. That's where he felt safe. That's where everything moved through. And because of that, the people around him felt his presence heavy. The kids especially loved him. When he asked them to stand around and keep watch, they didn't feel used. They felt chosen, like they were part of something important. To them, he wasn't just a drug boss. He was the big homie, somebody they could run to when things got rough, somebody who listened. Most days you could catch him at the local courts, running basketball or just leaning on the fence talking to kids. He wasn't loud or flashy in those moments, just cool, calm, approachable. A lot of people in the hood really thought he was a blessing to be around. He had a giving heart when it came to his people. If somebody lost a family member, he'd step in and cover funeral flowers. If somebody was short on bus fare, he'd handle it. Lights about to get cut off, he'd help with the bill. He made it a point to make sure people around him felt supported. At the height of his run, he was giving out gifts nonstop. Friends, family, anybody close was getting blessed. He sponsored a whole Boys and Girls Club basketball team, calling them Men at Work, and he moved through Northeast DC, handing $100 bills straight to kids on the sidewalk like it was normal. That kind of power changed how he looked at everything. In his mind, the dirt he did was balanced out by the good he brought back. He believed his family and his neighborhood depended on him, even though the same streets he was feeding were the ones buying from him. By April 15th, 1989, the run was officially over. Edmond got snatched up at his girlfriend's place in Washington, D.C., right when the walls started closing in. Out in Los Angeles, 4 men had already been caught trying to buy $1 million worth of cocaine from an undercover agent. Once they got grabbed, they started talking fast. And when they talked, they pointed
Once they got grabbed, they started talking fast, he said. You can count on it every time. Somebody's going to snitch on you. If you don't do this stuff alone, you can't do anything like this alone. You're going down. If you all get caught up, you're going down. Somebody's going down. Somebody's getting told on it. That's every time. They trying to get $1 million. They trying to buy $1 million. They trying to buy $1 million worth of the stuff. They pushing some weight. Whoa. And they start talking fast.
Straight at him. That one move cracked open his whole world. The feds later said this wasn't a lucky bust. This was a 2-year hunt. FBI, local police, and multiple agencies all moving together in the shadows, just waiting for the right moment to shut the whole thing down. After the arrest, things got strange. Instead of sitting in a regular DC jail, he was quietly moved to an unknown location. Nobody really knew where he was for a minute. Then came the trial, a long, ugly 56-day war inside a courtroom. He barely spoke through it. The only time he really opened his mouth was to say he couldn't afford a lawyer. The charges weren't light, they came heavy. Continuing criminal enterprise, drug conspiracy, racketeering, the type of labels built to bury people under concrete. He wasn't standing alone either. 27 other people sat in that courtroom with him. Family, friends, enforcers, runners, his own mother, his sister, his father, all locked into the same nightmare. Close names were there too, Royal Brooks Jr. and Tony Lewis. The trial felt like a movie. Over 100 witnesses took the stand, cameras everywhere, media breathing down the court's neck daily, and it was dangerous, real dangerous. The court had to make history just to keep people alive. Washington, D.C. used its first ever anonymous jury because threats were flying around. Jurors sat behind bulletproof glass while testifying. That's how serious it was. And the fear wasn't fake. During the trial, a 17-year-old witness named Donald Win.
Damn. That is serious. That's pretty much, that may be unprecedented. Well, I think that's what he said. Essentially, he alluded to the fact that they made history or something with this, an anonymous jury. And then, when they were exposed, I suppose, in the courtroom or whatever, they were behind bulletproof glass. And the witnesses or whatever who testified, as he said, there were over 100 witnesses or whatever that testified. Many of them, I'm sure, snitching and exposing the entire operation. So apparently, close to 28 of them were in trial, along with Rayful, Edmond, 27 others, I believe he had said, 27 others, mothers, sisters, father, runners, his cohorts. They're all in trial now. But the trial is potentially so dangerous, so violent, so many threats have been made against potential jurors that they had to make them anonymous and then put them behind bulletproof glass. So they believed in the strength or the power of this individual, that some people could actually come in the courtroom, inside of the courtroom, and start trying to take people out. This is apparently what they believed.
Got killed in what looked like a drive-by. He was supposed to testify days later. Another witness had their house firebombed while the case was still rolling. This wasn't just a trial. It was a war zone. Even Edmond needed protection. They housed him at Quantico Marine Base in Virginia and flew him in by helicopter every single day just so he could sit in court. His defense was simple in his mind. He tried to say he never sold the kids, so he wasn't hurting anyone. He said grown people made their own choices. He also argued they never caught him hand-to-hand selling drugs, so they couldn't tie anything to him directly. None of that stuck. His lawyers were sharp and respected him. One of them said he was one of the smartest clients he'd ever defended, but even he believed the life was written into him early. The defense tried flipping the story. They said the money didn't come from drugs, but gambling. They attacked witnesses, called them liars, tried to shake the whole foundation of the case. But Edmond, he stayed calm, smiling, talking, switching stories, laughing with the reporters. acting like he still controlled the room. Behind the scenes, though, the real damage came from inside. Friends flipped, close ones. Zanville secretly wore a wire and helped record conversations that exposed the whole operation. She cut a deal, saved herself, kept her wealth, and walked away clean. People who knew her said she'd say anything to protect herself. Then Brooks' turn too. He told the court he stored cocaine for Edmond and carried millions in cash to set up drug deals out in LA. That betrayal hit deeper than any sentence ever could. Those were the ones he called brothers. He stayed silent while it all unfolded. Family turned into witnesses. His sister was the first to label him a drug dealer, but denied being involved. His father refused to speak at all, hiding behind the fifth. His mother denied everything. The stories clashed. The room stayed tense. But the physical evidence, that part was undeniable. After 5 long days of jury deliberation.
So at least moms and pops stayed strong. Looked like the sister started snitching, labeling him a dealer. And Pop stayed silent the whole trial, he said. Essentially took the fifth, where he didn't have to say anything, and then moms just fought the case. But it don't look like it went well.
It was over. Life in prison. 2 life sentences. No parole. The fallout didn't stop with him. 28 people went down with him. His mother got 24 years. His sister got 21. His brother got 24. The rest of the crew got buried under heavy time too. The city couldn't look away. His face stayed in every paper, every headline. Everybody had an opinion. Some defended him, said he wasn't really a dealer, just around the wrong people. To a lot of kids in the streets, he was still a hero, a symbol, somebody who started small and made it big, even if the path was dirty. But the trial ripped the mask off everything. It exposed the violence, the manipulation, the blood under the money. Overnight, he went from
mother, 24 years, sister, 21 years, brother, 20-some years. Damn. Not worth it in the end. You had fun, you was living, making a lot of money, obviously, millions of dollars a week, or even possibly hundreds of millions a week. But in the end, and that's how it always goes, in the end, it doesn't end well. Seen this movie before. It doesn't end well.
Neighborhood king to the poster face of the drug world, a symbol of how young black men could get swallowed by the streets when the system already stacked against them. He never took responsibility for what the drugs did to the city. In his mind, it was business. People made their own choices. He didn't see himself as the villain. Even locked up, his biggest concern stayed the same: protecting his family's name. And the minute he disappeared from the streets, the game didn't stop. The corners didn't go quiet. Somebody else stepped in. Runners became bosses. New names filled the same spaces. They took the king off the board, but the board itself never stopped moving.
And it never does. It never does. Just like finding knives or whatever in prison, you just make more knives. You take some violent people off the yard, more violent people on the yard. You take some killers off the street, there are more killers on the street. You take some shot callers out of their neighborhood, they're going to be replaced by another shot caller.
Behind those cold prison walls, his mind stayed loud, busy, and way too confident. Lockup didn't humble Edmond. If anything, it made him feel like he was just going through a bad chapter, not the end of his story. In his head, he wasn't the villain. He saw himself as a good man, hit by bad luck, convinced that somehow, some way, he'd beat the system and walk free again. He stayed hopeful, waiting on miracles in the form of appeals, new evidence, anything that might flip the script. On February 16, 1990, he officially entered federal custody. First stop was USP Marion in Illinois, a prison with a hard reputation. He didn't stay there long. By September of that same year, he was transferred to USP Lewisburg in Pennsylvania, a high-security prison housing around 1,000 inmates. Because of how famous and dangerous his name was, they started him off in solitary confinement. They didn't trust the yard to hold him safely. Eventually, they moved him into general population and even gave him a job as a prison orderly. For a short time, he tried to look like the model inmate, but that mask didn't last long. A few months into Lewisburg, he ran into two people who would change everything. Dixon Dario Trujillo Blanco was in the same cell block. His brother Osvaldo was locked up just one block away. These weren't average inmates. These were high-level players. The Trujillo brothers were heavy suppliers, moving cocaine from Colombia into the United States. They weren't street level, they were source level. Their mother was Griselda Blanco, known in the underworld as the Godmother. She was one of the most feared figures in the drug world, tied to the Medellin network and the violence that flooded Miami for years. Their whole childhood was soaked in the drug life, trained and shaped by her hand from early on. That family-first mindset connected them to Edmond instantly. He lived for family. They moved through crime as a family business, different countries, same code. At the same time, Edmond's regular supply chain from Los Angeles had fallen apart because his old sources also got locked up. But meeting the Trujillo brothers opened a fresh door. Now he had access to wholesale cocaine straight from Colombian connections, and the prices were good. At first, he worked through their friends. Over time, he built direct lines with the brothers themselves. Prison turned into a networking hub. Instead of being locked out the game, he adapted. He realized he couldn't bully or exploit these men. He had to partner with them. So he built bridges. Using the connections he still had on the streets, he started linking Washington, D.C. traffickers with his new Colombian pipeline. When the Trujillo brothers were released in early 1992 and sent back to Colombia, they didn't go home empty-handed. They had a hungry customer already locked in. They came up with a smart system to get around the prison phones. Everything ran through coded language and three-way calls. He'd place a collect call to a woman, a dealer, or a worker on the outside. That person would then connect a Colombian number. Just like that, major drug deals got discussed while he sat inside a max security prison. And the wild part, the prison staff knew. The phone monitors picked it up early. Notes were written about his conversations, sounding like drug deals. He was placed on a hot list. Word even reached the warden and the FBI, but nothing happened. The system basically shrugged. In their eyes, they'd already won because he was behind bars. Him still moving weight from a prison phone wasn't seen as urgent. He was just another drug dealer in a building full of them. They saw the three-way international calls. They knew those were forbidden. They documented it, filed it, then let it sit in a pile. That's what protected him for a while. Not his smarts, not fear, just bureaucracy and indifference. Looking back, it became clear the Bureau of Prisons didn't move because they didn't think they needed to. They weren't going to step in until he became too big to ignore. Until he turned into the problem, they couldn't pretend not to see anymore. Now the feds had their eyes on Edmond early, tapping his phone calls in late 90 and early 91. At that time, the prison system played it off like nothing major was happening, saying the investigation was ongoing, while the streets inside the wire told a whole different story. At places like USP Lewisburg, tens of thousands of calls went out every single month, and a lot of them weren't about checking on moms or kids. They were business calls, drug calls, network building calls, and the system couldn't really keep up. Then came the turning point. Summer of 92, an anonymous tip dropped like a brick through a window. That tip forced the FBI to officially lock in and monitor Edmond's calls for 6 months straight. That's when they realized he wasn't talking to just anybody. The voice on the other end was tied to Osvaldo Trujillo, a direct line to Colombian cocaine. The crazy part was the language. It wasn't straight talk, it was code, street poetry. They talked about girlfriends who were 6 feet tall and old neighborhoods, and in reality, that was 6 kilos of cocaine moving for tens of thousands of dollars, all while guards sat there with headphones on, hearing it all and not really understanding none of it. Edmond was making 60 calls in under 5 hours, running a whole empire from behind concrete walls. When Osvaldo died in October 92, everything shifted. That connection died with him, and the FBI basically lost steam. They turned their
60 calls in hours. Yeah, he running a whole operation. In fact, they did a 60 Minutes interview on this individual, Rayful, Edmond, I remember. In fact, I just saw just a clip of it. And he explains a lot in the 60 Minutes interview. Maybe I get into that and give him a chance to speak for himself. But this is, because, in fact, he admitted in that interview that he had a whole operation going on inside a prison. Like they're pretty much saying here, he had a whole operation going on inside a prison. Crazy. But as I said, he ended up passing away at 60 years old just recently, or, not too long ago, from my understanding. But I'm still a bit unclear as to the snitching that he was supposed to have done on 300 individuals or whatever. But again, let's see if we're going to, I guess he did make mention of it, but this is wild work.
Focus elsewhere, chasing smaller players still outside. Prosecutors even went on record saying it was unlikely Edmond would ever be charged for running deals from inside prison. And the wildest part, the prison itself did nothing. No phone restrictions, no punishment. He kept moving like nothing changed. Edmond later admitted he had access to phones from early morning to late at night. That was all he needed. If they had cut him down to one call a week, his whole operation would have collapsed. But instead, he had free range, and on top of that, he worked as an orderly. That gave him access to unmonitored office phones and let him study guard shifts like a schedule board. He wasn't just selling drugs through the prison. He was bringing them inside dozens of times, 50, 60 runs. He moved freely, ducked cameras, studied blind spots, and walked the tiers like he owned the place. During that run, he brokered thousands of pounds of cocaine, all while fueled by one mindset. He still needed people to respect him, to fear him, to believe he was untouchable. The money he made didn't.
Thousands? In prison, he brought in thousands of pounds, he said. I'm sure he meant kilos or whatever, but whoa. And yeah, they are giving him free reign in there. He has access to these phones, access to free phones, or non-monitored phones, because he's an orderly. He refers to him as just like a porter, a worker, whatever. You go into the offices, clean up. Wow. They caught him on the phone. They couldn't really decipher these deals, but they knew that he was making deals. And even he said, had they cut him down to one phone call a week, that his operation would have crumbled. But instead, the authorities just said, the hell with it. We already got him. He locked up. We don't care. They not only did they not limit his phone calls, they gave him access to the phone and whatever else. And he bringing in all kinds of stuff into the prison. Found out the blind spots, strategized. I'm sure he had people working with him as well.
Just sit with him. He pushed it back home. Parents, siblings, women tied to him and the crew, they all got fed off his movement. Nobody high up seemed to care. Not the FBI, not the prison, not the warden. That silence gave him space to build again and climb right back to the top of the prison food chain. By 1994, the government finally felt embarrassed. They knew they looked weak. So they pulled Edmond aside, laid the cards on the table, and told him exactly what they had on him, plus what would happen if they pushed the case all the way. Then they made their offer. He flipped. After a short stay in isolation, he came back to the yard as something different, not just an inmate, a government asset, a ghost working both sides. And the crazy part, he still had power. He still had the codes, the contacts, the influence. Nobody knew he had turned. Using fake deals with inmates and naming names on the outside, he helped bring down crews in Pennsylvania and DC real numbers, real arrests. And in return, he did the one thing that mattered most to him. He shortened his mother's sentence. By 98, she was home early. That wasn't luck. That was him pulling strings from inside a cell, proving that family still came before everything. But the streets don't forgive that kind of move.
Oh, damn all that. He snitched. Family come before everything. Oh, that's a nice way to put it. That's a nice way to say he ratted. I'm sorry. Moms, you know what I'm saying? Work it out. Get on your push-ups. Stay strong. You'll be out soon. But I can't help you get out by snitching. That ain't gonna happen.
Word spread, snitch, informant. And just like that, the same people who would have died for him now wanted him dead. He lost his status, lost his protection, and became a walking target. The prisons couldn't even hold him safely anymore. That's when the government erased him. They moved him through witness protection, changed his location, buried his whereabouts. He disappeared. Years later, in 2019, the government shocked everybody. They went to a federal judge and asked for his early release, not because he was innocent, but because he was valuable. For 2 decades, he gave them deep insight into the drug world, names, methods, structures. The judge called it the hardest decision of his career and opened the door for public opinion. Some people, like a retired cop, started off against it, but later felt maybe there was room for redemption. A former addict who lived through the chaos supported his release, saying if she could recover, so could he. On the other side, a parole officer blamed Edmond for the deaths of multiple young men who had worked under him. The internet was a war zone, half saying free him, half saying never. In 2021, the judge finally agreed to reduce his sentence. Not erase it, but reduce it. Another 30-year sentence still hung over him, but the cooperation changed everything. He helped solve murders, helped dismantle major drug lines, helped expose cartel operations tied to Cali and Medellin. Investigators even revealed he had once shared space with someone tied directly to Pablo Escobar's future family. By 2019, Edmond told the court he wanted to be a pastor, said he wanted to help kids avoid the same trap. Law enforcement saw value in that, even if the streets never would. In July 2024, he was quietly moved to a halfway house under federal supervision, somewhere in the southern United States. The exact spot was kept secret. Then came the ending. Nobody wrote. December 17, 2024, the Bureau of Prisons confirmed he was found dead at a transitional facility in Florida. 60 years old, a year away from full freedom. Most reports pointed to a sudden heart attack. There's only one known video of him after release. Airport footage, fresh air, freedom in his lungs. He said he was back better than ever. One of his attorneys later said his first fear was assassination, but the story settled on natural causes. Years of prison food, years of stress, years of a heart that carried too much weight for too long. That's how Edmond's story closed.
Yeah, perhaps. I was gonna get into that right there too. That's between the lines. There's a female there locked up. Rayful Edmond. Let me know what you think in the comments. I mean, what a coincidence that he got out of, he got out, and as soon as he got out, he passed away from a presumed heart attack. He was in fear of being assassinated. He probably felt like he may have been paranoid. Probably felt like people were after him or whatever, knowing that he had snitched on a whole lot of people. He in witness protection. I mean, he went deep into the snitching then, apparently, for decades. Told on murders, told on cartels, told on his own operation, told on everything. So, yeah, he was scared to death. He was worried getting out after all of that. And then what do you know? He gets out, and then, he right there in the airport or what have you, taking pictures and videos and this and that. What kind of witness protection is this? These dudes just can't stay out of the limelight. And then, he get to wherever he's going, and he's not there long before he passes away, before he dies. And again, it still is unclear as to why he died. It seems like they're saying maybe it was a heart attack, but I need some clarification. I'm unclear. Crazy, but there you have it, man. Rayful Edmond, mother, even though his snitching got her home early, sisters, father, everyone involved in this operation, everyone getting decades in prison, including him, even though he ended up, the judge finally decided to reduce the sentence. But he had a lot of time because he had a co-operation going on, as we can see. Whatever the estimates are, 2 million a week or 100 million a week. It was deep. But all of this stuff that he's doing, of course, to make this money is just poisoning the community. That's all it does in the end. I've been guilty of this same thing. So I'm not here to pass judgment. We just all need to do better. No amount of money is worth it. I would never in life sell any narcotics to anyone. I don't want to contribute to anyone's bad habits or to the detriments of their life for my profit, for my gain. Especially pumping this stuff into my own community, watching the zombie-like effect that it takes in the community. No, not $1 trillion is worth that. Stay safe and stay free, people.